How are you?
How are you all?
Fine, thank you.
Very nice to meet you.
Very nice to
Good to see
meet
you.
you. See you in person
Yeah.
as well.
Am I right here?
Yes, there you are.
Excellent.
Without any hiccups.
Good.
Okay.
All righty.
Right. So we'll be.
We
good
got
to go
15 minutes and
when you are. Yes.
I am ready right now.
We are live for that event we have eagerly been awaiting for, and that is an exclusive interview with none other than U.S. President Barack Obama. Kenyan American Barack Obama, we're glad to have you.
It's great to be here, Olive. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, just back to the Kenyan American thing. I'm curious. Aren't you afraid of backlash back home when you first got into office? You were forced at some point to release your birth certificate.
Yeah.
So
I wasn't actually forced.
Okay,
I just wanted to end
the
silly
speculation.
conversations.
Yeah, silly conversations.
There weren't any serious speculation. This was just sort of a side circus that sometimes happens in the United States. Yeah, I am very proud of the connection that I've got to Kenya. I wrote a book when I was very young, talking about it, and the truth of the matter is that the American people, see themselves as a nation of immigrants. That's been our history. We have Native Americans who were there from many years ago, but most people arrived from someplace else, and that continues to occur. And when you walk down not just big cities like New York, but you travel to small towns in rural America, you will see people from every corner of the globe. And in some ways, my own history is a reflection of what makes America great. That sense that people from different places can go to America and succeed, as long as they believe in our central creed, which is if you work hard, all of us are equal under the law, and we have the opportunity to succeed.
Okay. Speaking of diversity, when you were in Kenya in 2006 as a senator, one of the concerns you raised were ethnic divisions.
Yes.
So what lessons do you think we can learn as Kenyans from America, given you're an African American president who believes in gay equality and who is pushing for immigration reform?
This is an issue that's not just going to be important for the United States or Kenya. It's going to be important for every nation in the world. Part of what's happened with technology, with travel, is the world has shrunk. And now there's no corner of the world where you're not going to be confronted with people who are different from you, look different, speak different languages, have different cultures, may express their faith differently. And so we have this constant collision of cultures. And our children in particular, they're looking at their cameras and their cell phones, their smartphones, and the world is streaming through them with all these ideas and different points of view. And one of the things that I always tell my daughters, and I believe all young people, is that recognizing that the diversity of human experience is a gift, and that you can learn from people who are different from you. You don't have to give up your own identity to be respectful of people who are different. And sometimes they're going to help you see blind spots, because every culture and every society has its own blind spots. And that first and foremost, we have to see each other as human and connected. And when we do that, societies work better. Now, the United States obviously has the most diverse population of any large nation in the world. It's not always easy, and the big fault line in our country historically has been the history of race and racism and slavery and segregation, and we're still working through many of those issues. You've seen in the news reports lately some concerns around policing in the United States and discrimination. But each successive generation, things improve and get better. And I think that what Kenya can learn from us more than anything is that it's a process, but to constantly reaffirm that all people are equal. All people are deserving of respect. All people are equal under the law. And then to continually strive to expand the coverage of those rights to more and more people. That is something that will never be perfect, but we should continually strive for.
Okay. So it's interesting that you mentioned race, and you mentioned the Confederate flag when you gave
Yes.
your address at the indoor arena in Kasarani. So have you ever felt that you had to bite your tongue on account of your office when it came to questions of race and policing in the United States?
You know, I've been very consistent in my view that on the one hand, we've made enormous progress. The overwhelming majority of Americans, I think, are well-meaning and condemn prejudice. But what I've also said is that you don't overcome 400 years of history overnight, and that the vestiges of those past injustices continue to linger, and we have to constantly work on them. I think the only time I've been constrained by my office in talking about these issues is when you have a particular case that may involve a criminal investigation or a civil lawsuit. The tradition in the United States is that the application of justice, prosecutions, the court system, those things remain separate from politics. And since I am technically the boss of the Attorney General, even though the Justice Department and the Attorney General of the United States operate independently when it comes to law enforcement, I always have to be careful, for example, in something like the Trayvon Martin case, where there's an ongoing investigation taking place. If it looks like I am weighing in on a particular side, then that could be perceived as trying to influence the proper application of due process, and that's where I have to be a little more careful than commentators can be on those issues.
Okay. For those listening, you can watch the stream live on www.capitalfm.co.ke. Now, the building we're in is one of the regional centers, one of the Young African Leadership Initiative regional centers in Africa, 104, if I'm not mistaken, yes. So why has YALI been so important to you? Because I know this year you're doubling the number of those who will take part in the program from 500 to 1,000.
It's important to me because I keep on meeting all these incredible young people across the continent, and to make sure that not only they have access to resources and networks, but that they also get to know each other and gain a global perspective and can learn from each other, whatever their field, whether they're going into business or politics or journalism or want to start an NGO, a non-governmental organization. Human talent ultimately is what drives society. Technology exists because the human mind created it. I used the example of something like M-Pesa, which takes technologies that were invented in the United States, but actually, in many ways, is being applied here in a new creative way that is suited for the particular society. That comes from the minds of the people who see things in new ways. And young people inherently see things in new ways. They're not as bound by the past. And so what we have tried to do is to make sure that all these amazing leaders across countries, but also across disciplines and professions, have a chance to meet and get to know each other, so that 10 years from now or 15 years from now, when they are ministers in government or they are business leaders, they now know that not only are they making a difference in their country, but they are also forming the foundation for a generation of leadership that can work across borders on a lot of issues that are going to be transnational: climate change, terrorism, issues of refugees, peace and reconciliation, inclusive development. Those aren't just issues for one nation in particular. Those are issues that we're going to have to work on together. And I'm very excited to see the amazing talent that we've been able to mobilize and identify through the YALI program.
Okay. Speaking of YALI, we have one question from the YALI network, tweeted. Many questions were tweeted, but we picked this particular one. And the question is, how best can African countries cope with the challenge of achieving economic growth while protecting the environment?
Well, every country goes through a phase where it says to itself, we just want to grow and we don't really care about the environment. That happened during the Industrial Revolution. London used to be filled with soot and smog and you couldn't breathe. The United States, in my hometown of Chicago, the river there, you couldn't get close to because it was so full of pollution. What we've come to realize, though, is that instead of viewing economic development as a contradiction with environmental protection, that actually the two go hand in hand. That's obviously true for a country like Kenya, with so much natural beauty and a massive tourism industry. If you degrade the environment, if we are not able to stop wildlife trafficking, that has a concrete effect on jobs and growth. But it's true in more subtle ways. Most of Africa still relies heavily on agriculture. It's not going to be possible to use agricultural strategies that are degrading the soil, because over time we're just not going to be able to feed enough people. And it turns out that if you have scarce water, for example, applying smart irrigation practices will actually improve yields, but also make sure that there's going to be water not just tomorrow or next year, but 10 years from now. And when it comes to issues of climate change, if we go on the course that we are on now globally, the devastation that occurs because of increased drought, because of displacement, because of scarcity, more refugees, potentially increased conflict, all those things then deter development. So it's important for us to recognize that sustainable development, environmentally sound development, is not just the right thing to do. It makes good practical economic sense. It affects people's bottom lines, and a lot of companies are starting to realize, for example, that if they create factories that are more energy efficient, then they're saving money because their electricity bill is smaller, which is good for their bottom line. At the same time, if they're using less electricity, that is putting less strains on the environment.
Okay. So you spoke of tourism in Kenya. And before you came to Kenya, you said you'd prefer to come as a private citizen because then you can actually get out of the hotel room.
Yeah.
So which Kenyan destination, if you haven't yet had the opportunity to visit, would you visit?
Well, I still love going to Maasai Mara and the Serengeti. It's magical. Lamu is high on my list. Michelle and I went there when we were engaged, and I remember taking those dhows out and fishing, and then the captain of the boat cooking the fish right on the beach, and it was remarkable. But I know that there's still places in this beautiful nation that I haven't discovered. So I'm going to have to make sure that I get back. And it's not just Kenya. There's an ecosystem that's connected from Uganda to Tanzania. Climbing Kilimanjaro seems like something that should be on my list of things to do. once I get out of here. Secret Service generally doesn't like me climbing mountains, but as a private citizen, hopefully I can get away with something like that.
Okay. Finally, to wind up, what promise have you found hardest to keep in your time in office?
Well, I mentioned a few days ago in an interview, one of the biggest frustrations I've had is not being able to really make an impact on gun violence in the United States. We have a very particular culture that makes guns much more accessible, even to people who may have histories of violence or mental illness that should prohibit them from getting a gun. And there are some common sense rules we should be able to apply to prevent that. We could prevent a lot of unnecessary deaths. We don't do it because of the politics in the situation, and that's been a source of frustration. We still have more work to do on raising wages in the United States. When I came into office, the economy globally was crashing. And in cooperation with other countries, we were able to pull it out of that terrible recession. But you're still seeing patterns across the global economy where, partly because of technology, partly because of globalization, workers have less leverage, and that's weakened their bargaining position, and wages and incomes for a lot of people have remained stagnant, and you're seeing growing inequality. And we've made some progress on those issues, but not as much as I'd like. The good news is I still have 18 months left, and I still have a lot of energy and a lot of ideas about how we can get things done. And what's also true is that when I look at the list of things that I wanted to accomplish when I started in this job, probably 7 of the 10 biggest ones I've gotten done. You're never completely satisfied. You're always going to find more work to do because that's the nature of human progress. We're always dealing with imperfect societies. We, by definition, are imperfect. But if we stay at it, don't get discouraged, work together, we can leave a world that is better off than the one we founded. And I feel that my presidency has contributed to that. And I've had fun along the way.
Okay, and there you have it, a Capital FM's exclusive interview with President Barack Obama, a self-confessed House of Cards fan.
I watched the first season. Since that time, I've been too busy, but I'll have to catch up at some point. Is House of Cards pretty popular around here?
Yeah,
I guess Netflix is everywhere now.
Yes, it is. It's popular here. We buy the DVDs, but yeah, it's popular here. Well, thank you very much, and karibu tana.
Asante sana. Good. All right.
You can do a quick spray here.
Quick spray.
Okay,
This is Olive, who did an excellent interview that you guys can listen to on
www.capitalfm.co.ke. There you go.
You do it well.
You know my chairman, Dr. Chris Kirubi?
Yes.
Yeah, he has photos of you at the Memorial Park in 2006. You, Michelle, and the girls.
Yeah.
You remember him?
Although the girls were so small then.
Yes.
They had, when we were at Memorial Park, we looked at the pictures, and Sasha's about this big. Malia's about that big.
But she's 17 now, right?
Now she's 17.
They
They grow up
to
too fast.
college.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I
Off
enjoyed
to the
it.
airport?